When was the last time you truly sat in silence? With no phone, no music, no distractions. Just you alone with your own thoughts? For many of us, that idea feels uncomfortable, even frightening. And maybe that's the point Jung was making. He wasn't exaggerating when he said people will do anything to avoid their own soul. If you look around, it becomes obvious. Think about how often we drown ourselves in endless scrolling, binge-watching shows we don't even care about, or even creating unnecessary drama in our lives, just to stay busy, just to stay distracted. But why? Why are we so afraid of ourselves? The truth is simple, but hard to admit. Silence exposes what we've been hiding, the fears we've buried, the insecurities we don't want to face, the guilt we never resolved. They all rise to the surface when we sit with ourselves. Facing your soul means confronting all the shadows you've carefully tucked away. And that's terrifying. It feels safer to look outward, to blame others, to stay busy, than to confront what's within. And yet here's the irony. Every time we run from ourselves, we move further away from the life we actually want. We build walls of distraction, hoping they'll protect us, but they end up becoming prisons. We chase comfort, but we end up restless. We choose the absurd, because facing the truth feels unbearable. So let me ask you, are you running from yourself right now? If you really think about it, avoiding ourselves is almost an instinct. We don't even notice when we're doing it. For example, how many times have you picked up your phone for no reason, just to scroll? You're not really looking for anything. You're simply avoiding that uncomfortable moment when your mind goes quiet. Or maybe, you've noticed how people stay in toxic relationships, even when they know it's destroying them. Why? Because leaving would force them to face their loneliness. And loneliness feels unbearable. If you've never learned how to sit with your own soul, some escape into work. They bury themselves in endless tasks, convincing themselves they're being productive. But deep down, it's not productivity. It's avoidance. It's easier to answer 100 emails than to answer the one question. Am I actually happy with who I am? Others escape into habits that look harmless on the surface. Constant partying, shopping, or even obsessing over fitness. On the outside, it seems fine. But if the deeper purpose is distraction, then it's just another way of running. And here's the thing. All of these patterns are absurd, just like Jung said. They look logical in the moment. But if you zoom out, they're irrational. Why would we waste years avoiding the one person we can't escape? Ourselves? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't fear death as much as they fear silence. Because silence has a way of revealing who we really are. So the question becomes, if facing our soul is so scary, then how do we even begin? Carl Jung had a name for the part of ourselves we run from. The shadow. It's the side of our personality we don't want to admit exists. Our anger, jealousy, insecurity, guilt, or the pain we've buried for years. We pretend it isn't there. But it doesn't disappear. It just hides in the dark corners of our mind, quietly shaping our choices. Think about the friend who always preaches positivity, but secretly explodes in anger when things don't go their way. Or the person who constantly criticizes others, not because they're bad people, but because deep down, they haven't accepted their own flaws. That's the shadow at work. Jung believed that what we reject in ourselves doesn't vanish. Instead, it comes back disguised. If you suppress your anger, it leaks out as passive aggression. If you deny your fear, it shows up as controlling behavior. If you hide your pain, you end up hurting others in the same way you were once hurt. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can push it down for a while, but eventually, it bursts back to the surface, often in ways you don't expect. The scary part is this. Most people live their entire lives avoiding their shadow. They build masks, a perfect smile, a busy career, a carefully curated identity, just to keep the darker parts hidden. But the shadow doesn't go away. It waits. And until we face it, the shadow keeps controlling us. That's why Jung warned us. If you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll call it fate. So the real question is, are you brave enough to look directly at what you've been avoiding? Here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Avoiding your inner self doesn't protect you. It traps you. Every time you ignore what's going on inside, life finds a way to repeat the same lesson, just with a different face. Think about relationships. If you never deal with your abandonment issues, you'll keep finding partners who leave you over and over again. If you refuse to face your jealousy, it poisons every friendship until you end up isolated. If you don't confront your fear of failure, you'll stay stuck in the same job for years, convincing yourself you're comfortable, while secretly feeling restless and unfulfilled. Avoidance feels safe in the short term, like putting a bandage over a wound and pretending it's healed. But under that bandage, the infection grows. The same is true with the soul. You can distract yourself with Netflix, alcohol, work, or endless scrolling on your phone, but none of it removes the truth. The problems you don't face today will quietly grow stronger tomorrow. And here's the dangerous part. The longer you avoid, the more your identity gets built around that avoidance. You start believing, this is just who I am. Anxious, angry, jealous, insecure. But that's not who you are. That's just who you've become, because you've refused to face what lies beneath. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when you lean into discomfort and finally say, enough. I need to deal with this. Until that moment, your life will feel like a loop. Different people, different places, but the same problems repeating like déjà vu. So ask yourself, are you living your life? Or are you just running from yourself in circles? So, what happens when you finally stop running? When you turn around and face the very parts of yourself you've been avoiding? Something powerful begins to shift. The energy you once wasted on denial and distraction becomes fuel for transformation. Facing your soul doesn't mean you suddenly become perfect. It means you become honest. You stop lying to yourself. You admit, yes, I'm insecure. Yes, I'm still angry about what happened years ago. Yes, I've been hiding behind work or relationships or even spirituality. That honesty cracks the mask you've been wearing, and for the first time, you can breathe. And with honesty comes freedom. Think about it. Once you've admitted your flaws, no one can use them against you. Once you've accepted your fears, they lose their grip. Once you've forgiven yourself for the past, it no longer defines you. Jung called this process individuation, becoming whole by integrating every part of yourself, light and dark. And it's only through this integration that true growth happens. Instead of being controlled by your shadow, you learn from it. Instead of projecting your wounds onto others, you heal them within yourself. The result? Your relationships become deeper because you're no longer hiding. Your choices become clearer because they're not clouded by fear. Your purpose feels stronger because it's rooted in authenticity, not avoidance. Here's the paradox. The very thing you were most afraid to face turns out to be the key to your freedom. The darkness you resisted actually carries the light you've been searching for. So maybe the question isn't, what if I face my soul? The real question is, what will I lose if I don't? You might be wondering, okay, but how do I actually face my soul? It sounds abstract, but in reality, it's about creating honest moments with yourself. Moments where you stop running. For some people, this happens in therapy. Sitting across from someone trained to listen, you begin to say out loud the things you've hidden for years. The moment you speak your truth, it loses some of its power. You realize you're not broken. You're human. For others, it starts with journaling. Putting thoughts on paper without judgment can feel like shining a flashlight into a dark room. Suddenly, the fears and patterns you never noticed begin to reveal themselves. A journal becomes a mirror for the soul. Then there's solitude. Not the kind where you scroll on your phone alone in your room, but the kind where you sit in silence, maybe in nature, maybe in meditation, and let your inner voice rise to the surface. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You'll want to run. But if you stay, you'll start hearing truths you've ignored for years. Even shadow work, a practice inspired by Jung, is powerful. It's about noticing the traits you dislike in others and realizing they often reflect something unresolved within yourself. Instead of saying, "I hate that person because they're arrogant," you ask, "What does their arrogance trigger in me?" This shift turns irritation into insight. Facing your soul doesn't happen all at once. It's a process, a series of small, honest steps. The key is courage. The courage to stop numbing, to stop distracting, and to let yourself feel. Because the truth is, the more you run, the heavier it gets. But the moment you face it, even a little, you start to feel lighter. Let me share something personal with you. There was a time in my life when I thought I had everything under control. On the outside, I looked fine, busy with work, smiling in front of people, keeping myself distracted. But when I was alone, I felt restless. It was like a quiet storm inside me that I didn't want to acknowledge. I avoided it for months. Instead of slowing down, I worked harder. Instead of admitting I was hurting, I buried myself in distractions. I told myself I was too strong to be struggling. But the truth was, I was terrified of what I might find if I looked too closely at myself. Eventually, it caught up with me. I started feeling empty, even when things in life were going well. That's when I realized I wasn't running from the world. I was running from myself. So one day, I tried something simple. I sat down with a notebook and wrote the question, "What am I avoiding?" At first, nothing came. Then slowly, the words started to flow. I admitted I was scared of failing. I admitted I carried resentment from the past. I admitted I didn't fully like who I was becoming. It wasn't easy. I cried that day. But strangely, I also felt lighter, like I had taken the first deep breath in years. That small act of honesty changed me. It showed me that facing your soul doesn't break you. It begins to heal you. And if I learned one thing, it's this. The scariest part is always before you look. Once you finally face it, you realize you've had the strength all along. So here we are. We've circled back to Jung's warning. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But the question isn't really about people anymore. It's about you. Because the truth is, your soul has been calling you for a long time. Maybe through that restlessness you feel at night. Maybe through the repeated patterns in your relationships. Maybe through the quiet voice inside that whispers, "Something has to change." You can keep running. You can keep distracting yourself. You can keep pretending you're fine. But deep down you already know that avoidance hasn't worked. And if you've listened this far, it means you're ready. Ready to look closer. Ready to stop hiding. Ready to take one honest step. That step doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to solve your entire life today. All you need is a beginning. Maybe tonight, you sit in silence for 5 minutes and just ask yourself, what am I avoiding? Maybe you pick up a journal and write the words you've been too scared to say. Maybe you finally admit to someone you trust that you're struggling. Whatever it is, that small act of honesty is the doorway. It's the start of becoming whole. Remember, facing your soul won't destroy you. It will set you free. Because the very darkness you've been afraid of is also where your light has been waiting all along. So I leave you with this. Don't run anymore. Turn around. Face yourself. You might just discover the strength you've been searching for has been within you the entire time. Thank you for watching. I hope this journey helped you see a little deeper into yourself and the hidden self within. If you want to keep exploring the shadows and discovering who you truly are, make sure to watch more of my videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next step in this path of self-discovery. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Share them in the comments below. Until then, keep looking inward.